The story begins with Hina, a young vampire living in Japan, who spends her nights watching anime in her quest to become an otaku. One evening, exciting news spreads. Vampire Cross is getting a new season. The key visual reveals the name Mao Ryusuzaki, and her heart leaps with joy. She eagerly shares the news with her father over a call, feeling more nervous than she ever has before, even more than on the night she died. In her mind, Mao's powers are essential to saving the world, but her father gently reminds her that Mao is only a fictional character. Hina has been living in Japan for a month, and her father worries about her being alone. He asks if she has found any delicious-looking friends. She brushes it off, explaining that she drinks from blood bags instead of humans. She mentions an online friend who had planned to visit the Chocomu Cafe, only to be shocked when the friend suddenly deletes their account. Her father's tone turns strict as he urges her to mark someone she likes to keep other vampires away. Hina apologizes and ends the call, muttering that he always says things like that. Because of this, she never told him that Amanatsu, her next-door neighbor, looks a lot like Mao. As she opens her door, Amanatsu is already waiting. He softly wonders if she's ready to go out, and she nods excitedly. He teases her for being an otaku, and she quickly points out that his personality is nothing like Mao's. He urges her to hurry to the anime shop to enter a raffle. Hina hopes to win a Mao-themed prize, but doubts her luck. In the end, she hands her ticket to Amanatsu, who accepts it while reminding her he still needs to study. As they walk, she notices the faint, sweet scent around him. Later, they sit on a bench, and Hina freezes in shock when Amanatsu wins, especially when the prize turns out to be Mao's item. He laughs lightly as she stares in amazement. She admires the picture, imagining Mao sitting before her, calmly sipping a drink with a soft grin that makes her blush. Amanatsu interrupts her daydream, and she playfully punches him in response. His expression soon turns serious. He begins to wonder how many vampires are living in Japan, recalling the one who attacked him and mentioned his sweet scent. He hopes Hina might be able to contact others to prevent further danger, but she lowers her gaze and admits she doesn't know where they are. Growing tense, he insists there must be some way. Hina hesitates, embarrassed, thinking of the only method she knows, but instead suggests asking her father. Amanatsu pales and quickly refuses. Noting that it has gotten dark, he decides to head home. As they walk, he muses why she is so obsessed with being an otaku. She pouts and reminds him about the Blu-ray she lent him, but he returns it unopened. She begs him to watch it and become her otaku friend, but irritation rises in him. He sharply declares that he will never be her otaku friend, that anime is fiction while his exams are real, and tells her to stop idolizing Mao. His words shatter her smile. Hearing this, she recalls her online friend saying something similar. As Amanatsu walks away, a young boy notices her anime bag and approaches her with a bright smile, talking enthusiastically about Mao. Relieved, she listens as he invites her to his store. Suddenly, Amanatsu rushes back and kicks the boy away, assuming he is trying to deceive her. Hina panics, pulls Amanatsu back, and clings to the boy, insisting she has finally found another Mao fan. Amanatsu's expression darkens as she mutters that anyone is fine as long as they can talk about Mao. The scene shifts to a flashback. Hina sits alone in her dim room with a small suitcase, editing her profile to say she likes Mao. Soon after, she makes an online friend. Through this space, she is able to chat with humans, vampires, and even merfolk, anyone who shares her passion. Back in the present, Amanatsu leaves after saying harshly that he will no longer hang out with her. Alone, Hina enters the shop. Inside, two workers whisper about a first-time customer who looks like an anime otaku. She sits nervously on a sofa with a menu, anxious because she has never spoken to another fan face-to-face. Still, she hopes to make friends despite remembering Amanatsu's cold words. A host approaches her, acting like Mao from Vampire Cross Nightmare. He explains the basic rules and mentions that another host will replace him shortly. As Hina studies the menu, she hesitates, unsure about drinking alcohol. The host grows suspicious of her age, but she quickly shows her anime shop card, which reassures him. She decides to try a drink called Bloody Mirror. Meanwhile, Amanatsu walks alone, uneasy about leaving her behind. He thinks about the other vampires that might be nearby and fears another attack. He recalls her hint about a protection method and her simple wish for him to become her otaku friend. Realizing how sincere she is, he decides he cannot leave her alone after all. At the club, Hina orders another drink. As the staff bustle around her, she grows more relaxed and cheerfully reaches out to touch the host's face in curiosity. However, her mood suddenly drops. Covering her face, she mutters that Amanatsu must dislike her. She continues mumbling about his behavior, which makes two nearby hosts visibly saddened. They are soon scolded by their senior for becoming too emotionally involved. Just then, her phone vibrates. Her father's worried voice comes through. She tells him she is at a store, but he immediately guesses her actual location. Glancing at the host, she briefly imagines he is Mao before realizing he is not. Suddenly, a crackling sound fills the room as dark smoke begins to spread throughout the club. Outside, Amanatsu notices the smoke and rushes inside. He finds Hina collapsed on the floor, clutching her phone and struggling to stay conscious. Kneeling beside her, he urges her to get up. She weakly whispers his name, her unfocused eyes filling with relief as she clings to him. Drawn by his sweet scent, she lightly presses her fangs against his neck. At that moment, the smoke vanishes. Both of them collapse to the ground. Startled, Amanatsu checks his neck, only to realize there is no bite mark. Hina quietly murmurs for him to watch the DVD, even if he refuses to be her otaku friend, while the staff stare in shock. The next morning, Amanatsu sits on his balcony with a cup of tea, exhausted from the night before. Hina steps outside and thanks him, assuming he carried her home. His tone softens as he explains that she had simply gotten drunk. Embarrassed, she looks away. Then he reveals that he did watch the DVD. She stares at him in shock. Hina watches an emotional scene from her anime, thinking about the princess who hides her true identity. She feels deeply moved, especially as she remembers how cool Mao looks in the flashback from episode 33, her favorite episode of season 3. While the anime continues playing in the background, she scrolls through her phone and realizes she stayed awake all night finishing the season. She quickly checks the official website and discovers new merchandise announcements, reacting with excitement as she retweets everything. Then she notices a stage play scheduled for next spring, which overwhelms her with happiness. Being able to follow every update in real time fills her with joy. Unable to contain her excitement, she calls her father and tells him how happy she is to be in Japan. He answers with concern, asking if she is still awake. In a tired voice, she admits she is about to sleep after staying up all night. Her father then tells her he has sent a butler and wants her to let him in when he arrives. Hina panics, wondering why he would do that, but her father continues firmly. He explains the butler will act as her bodyguard because he worries about her safety, especially after a human forced her to drink alcohol. He believes she has lived too sheltered a life and needs protection. Hina insists she is fine, but he ignores her and says the butler will arrive that very night. He adds that she should dress properly, which brings her to tears as she imagines the butler intruding on her life. Desperate, she begs him to reconsider. Meanwhile, Amanatsu sits on a bench in Pixel Land with his friends Momoi and Hoshino. Momoi grows frustrated, complaining that he still wants a girlfriend, noting that he is already in college and still single. Momoi becomes even more annoyed when he realizes he is spending the outing with two boys. Amanatsu remains focused on his phone, remembering how Momoi begged him to buy the extra ticket. Momoi now regrets everything, since the girl he invited declined the date even after he bought the tickets. Amanatsu feels it is not his problem, though he knows he helped by showing up. Suddenly, Hoshino looks unwell. The others notice immediately. Amanatsu reacts with concern, while Momoi bluntly points out that Hoshino is always sick and should have stayed home. Amanatsu tries to ease the tension, speaking gently because Hoshino clearly wants to enjoy the outing. Momoi remains unconvinced and looks toward a nearby attraction. He notices the battleship ride has a short wait and suggests going there. Amanatsu stops him, pointing out that Hoshino cannot stand in line that long. Momoi questions why he even came, and he answers sincerely that he wanted to spend time with Amanatsu since they have not ridden anything yet. At that moment, someone approaches with urgency. Hina steps through the crowd and reaches the bench after searching the park for Amanatsu. She calls out to him with relief, drawing the boy's attention. She feels relieved to see him, as he was not home earlier. Now she stands before him, but she looks worried. She explains that she ran away from home and needs a place to stay, asking if she can stay with him for a while. Momoi studies her and comments that she is cute, wondering if she is Amanatsu's girlfriend. He quickly denies it, explaining she is only his neighbor. She introduces herself as Hina Alucard. Momoi responds politely and introduces Hoshino, the pale friend beside him. He explains they are college students and invites her to join them on the battleship ride. Hina becomes excited and agrees, but Amanatsu immediately refuses. Momoi argues that he should stay with Hoshino while he rides with Hina, even offering to let her stay at his place. Amanatsu rejects the idea outright. Momoi complains that he also wants to enjoy Pixel Land, but Amanatsu stands firm. Hoshino quietly insists he will be fine alone and encourages them to go, yet Amanatsu still refuses. Annoyed, Momoi questions why he has to ride with Amanatsu instead of Hina. Soon, Amanatsu and Momoi argue in the battleship line, becoming the battleship buddies, while Hina and Hoshino remain behind as the bench buddies. Hoshino lowers his head, struggling to breathe as he worries about being alone with someone new. Hina, however, remains calm and suggests they move into the shade. She tries to think of something to say, hesitating softly. They walk together into an underwater-themed area. Hina looks around in wonder, feeling as if she has stepped beneath the sea. Hoshino follows quietly, observing her. Curious about her relationship with Amanatsu, he asks if she often stays at his place. Hina looks surprised and calmly replies that she has never visited his home, let alone stayed there. This relieves Hoshino. Meanwhile, she softens her expression and decides that, just for today, she will stay over. Standing in the themed area, she worries because she cannot keep the conversation going. Hoshino suddenly excuses himself and heads to the restroom. Inside, he grips the sink tightly as his breathing becomes uneven. His fangs appear as he struggles with his emotions, refusing to let her take Amanatsu from him. In his mind, he believes he found Amanatsu first. Back outside, Hina continues exploring the sea-themed area with delight. It reminds her of episode 33 from the Underwater Kingdom arc. Smiling, she takes a photo. Hoshino returns and apologizes for the delay. He casually mentions that the area is fun and suggests going on a ride together. When she asks which one, he points ahead. Hina looks up at a spinning attraction called Urashima Time Slip. Hearing that the wait time is short, she steps forward. Soon, the ride begins. As it accelerates, Hina lifts her face with joy, shouting as the wind rushes past her. She swings through the air, completely exhilarated. Suddenly, the ride stops with a loud clatter. Workers announce an emergency halt. Hina is found lying on the ground, smiling and completely unhurt. Cheerfully, she explains that she fell off. Hoshino stares at her in disbelief. Panicking, he rushes to her side and checks if she is okay, insisting they go to first aid. Hina calmly reassures him that she is fine. He begins to wonder if she might be a vampire too. She apologizes for stopping the ride and even asks if he wants to ride again. Meanwhile, he reflects on how she lives next to Amanatsu and wonders if she has been drawn to him for a reason, perhaps waiting for her chance. Later, Amanatsu learns what happened as Hina casually explains that she fell off a jellyfish-like ride and tore her dress. He asks if she truly fell, but she simply says it was fun and wants to ride something else. Momoi checks on her, while Hoshino blames himself for not protecting her and apologizes repeatedly. Hina insists again that she is not hurt, leaving Hoshino confused about how she avoided injury. Hina wants to ride the jellyfish attraction again, but it has been closed for inspection. Momoi suggests another ride, the Castle Free Fall, and she agrees. He offers to carry her backpack and takes her hand, leading her away as Amanatsu watches. Amanatsu tells Hoshino not to worry, saying Hina is strong. Hoshino grips Amanatsu's shoulder, his expression tense as he studies him. In that moment, he realizes Amanatsu finds Hina both strange and cute. Hoshino recalls that Hina plans to stay at Amanatsu's place. Meanwhile, he walks ahead, rejecting the idea internally and wondering why she would run from her home only to come next door. Hoshino lowers his gaze, convinced that Amanatsu will eventually let her stay. Nearby, Momoi invites Hina to stay at his place instead, mentioning that he lives alone. Amanatsu immediately kicks him to stop him from wandering off, then takes Hina's backpack and keeps Momoi in check. Hiomoi groans in pain while Amanatsu holds the bag and signals for Hina to follow. She looks up at him with wide eyes and quietly agrees. As they walk, Hina brings up staying at his place again, but Amanatsu refuses and returns her backpack. He redirects her toward the free-fall ride instead. Though she hesitates, she still intends to stay at his home, which makes him tense. Meanwhile, Momoi suddenly declares that he wants to stay over too, leaving Amanatsu confused. Hoshino grows frustrated as the line remains long. Although he still feels sick, he does not want to waste the expensive tickets. Amanatsu suggests going home, but Hoshino insists he is fine and he loves thrill rides. Deep down, he knows that he has missed his chance. Hina walks with Hoshino, Momoi, and Amanatsu toward the ride, excitement rising in her chest. She thinks it looks fun as Momoi announces their turn is next. As they move forward, Hoshino suddenly grabs Amanatsu from behind, leaning weakly against him. Through discomfort, he admits he feels sick and wants to leave the line. Amanatsu studies him with concern, while Hina steps closer, confused, and checks on him. Amanatsu turns to the staff, worried, and reports that Hoshino is unwell. Momoi, however, teases Hoshino with a smug grin. Hoshino reaches for Amanatsu, urging him to come along. Amanatsu agrees and moves with him, telling the others he will return later. The staff checks the line, calling the next guests forward. Hoshino stares quietly, and Hina watches him until Momoi urges her to sit. Hina lowers the safety bar, and as the ride rises, Momoi calls Hoshino a chicken. However, Hina's thoughts linger on Amanatsu's expression, one that feels strangely familiar to her. She turns to Momoi and asks when Amanatsu and Hoshino became friends. Momoi explains that they met 6 months ago in college, describing Hoshino as weak, pale and faint during the day. He's silent at restaurants and always follows them like a night owl. Hina remembers how she couldn't eat pancakes when she sat with Hoshino, how his scent felt overpowering to her, and she suspects he might be a vampire. She wonders why he stays with them when he never seems to enjoy anything. Then, with a jolt, she realizes Hoshino must be in love with her. Her heart races, and she jumps up, rushing out to confirm it. The scene shifts to Hoshino and Amanatsu in a quiet place. Amanatsu offers a gentle apology, acknowledging that Hoshino missed the ride. Hoshino, breathing hard, insists it doesn't matter because Amanatsu also dislikes thrill rides. He watches Amanatsu with longing, thinking he should bite him, that this moment is perfect. But fear rises within him. What if Amanatsu hates him once he finds out Hoshino is a vampire? Hoshino steps toward him, legs shaky, but trips and falls into Amanatsu's arms. Amanatsu steadies him with a warm grip, calling him clumsy. Hoshino breathes in Amanatsu's sweet scent, feeling pain as the reality of becoming a monster sinks in. He recalls the night a creature attacked him, turning him into a vampire. He remembers entering college, failing to make friends, and wishing he could ask someone for help. The sunlight drains him, and although class will start soon, he can't move. He has a modern logic quiz to take, but the thought feels distant. Amanatsu wakes beside him and nudges him, reminding him about the quiz. He studies Hoshino with growing curiosity and points out that they share the class. He mentions seeing Hoshino in the lecture hall and lists the courses they share, noting how Hoshino always sits alone in the cafeteria and classroom. He observes Hoshino's heavy clothes, even in summer, and calls him strange before asking his name. Hoshino, worried about rejection, plans to stay at Amanatsu's place. He wants more time with him. Suddenly, Hoshino points at Amanatsu's neck and insists a giant cricket is sitting on him. Amanatsu panics and flails for help. Hoshino leans in, the urge to bite overwhelming him, believing the moment could change everything. But just then, Hina arrives and calls out his name, stopping him. Frustrated, Hoshino pulls away, begging her to let him go. Hina stands firm between them, warning that if he bites Amanatsu, he'll lose him forever. Amanatsu remains confused, still wondering about the supposed cricket. Hoshino faces Hina, hurt evident in his expression, and demands to know why she interrupted him when she, too, is a vampire. She steps closer, calmly reminding him that he's been fighting his instincts from the very beginning. She points out how the sun weakens him, how he collapses during the day, and how he sits with Amanatsu during meals despite being unable to eat. She explains that he's never harmed Amanatsu because he likes him. Amanatsu calls Hoshino's name again, still confused, and asks about the cricket's size. Hoshino turns to Hina, his curiosity piqued, and asks how she figured out his feelings. Hina explains that it was his grip on Amanatsu's arm that gave him away, just like Prince Rukia's gesture in episode 33 of Vampire Cross, when he chose to confess to Princess Teresa. Amanatsu interrupts once more, rubbing his ear in confusion. Hoshino's face brightens as he asks if she means episode 33 of Vampire Cross. When he sees her excitement, he admits he's watched it at least 30 times. Hina, in turn, recalls Mao and notices the crest of the underwater kingdom on something Hoshino shows her. Joy bursts through her when she realizes he's carrying the emblem she adores. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Momoi, who complains about Hina raising the safety bar earlier and frightening him. Amanatsu brushes it off with mild annoyance. Momoi mutters that nightmares will follow him. He walks back and notices Hina and Hoshino growing closer. Hoshino learns that Hina traveled from Romania to live as a true otaku, explaining that she begged her father to let her move to Japan alone for her otaku life, especially since Season 6 was about to air. Hoshino, amazed, wonders if she feeds on humans. She explains that she avoids biting people and drinks blood bags instead. Hoshino relaxes and admits he does the same, feeling a sense of camaraderie between them. Momoi watches them with frustration, muttering that Hina used to cling to him but now seems to ignore him. Amanatsu watches quietly, sensing an unexpected tension between the group. Hoshino prepares to visit Amanatsu's place, but Hina promises to keep his secret until he chooses to reveal it. He thanks her, apologizing for pushing her off the ride earlier. She smiles, insisting that she had fun, and feels happy because she's finally made a friend, a vampire friend. Hoshino blushes, realizing she's the first vampire he's ever met, besides the one who attacked him. Hina calls him her dear otaku friend as their hands rest together. Amanatsu watches them quietly, while Momoi urges everyone to leave before the trains become crowded. They agree, and Amanatsu turns to Hina, inviting her over, but panic hits him, and he blurts out that he doesn't want her to come. She reaches toward him with confusion, but at that moment, thunder rumbles through the sky. Rain pours down, and Amanatsu stumbles, shocked. A tall man steps forward through the storm, his heavy presence unmistakable. He introduces himself as Victor and declares that he has come to take Lady Hina home. Victor stands before Hina as her father's aide, bowing with calm respect. He greets her warmly, noticing how much she's grown. Offering his services as her bodyguard in Japan, he promises to manage her meals, wardrobe, and finances, urging her to return home. Hina, however, rejects the suggestion and mentions that Kyuta has invited her over tonight. Victor freezes at her words, while the boys around her react with shock. He studies her face and recalls when she was just a small child. He gently makes her fall asleep and lifts her into his arms. Amanatsu reacts in panic, accusing Victor of taking her away. Hoshino warns Amanatsu with sharp fear, urging him to step back because Victor seems dangerous. He glares at the boys, threatening to keep them away from Hina, but sparing them only for her sake. He then vanishes instantly. Amanatsu muses that he lives next door. Momoi stares in confusion, wondering what illusion just happened. Two nearby people whisper in confusion, feeling that the moment is surreal. Hoshino calls out to Amanatsu with urgency, telling him to stay clear of Victor. Amanatsu stiffens with discomfort, stepping back because Victor looks too much like an anime character. He assumes Hina is already home and walks toward the exit with a tired sigh. Hoshino feels regret, wishing he had exchanged contact information with Hina. As he looks at Amanatsu, he suddenly recognizes Mao Ryusuzaki's features in his face. Placing his hand over his own in disbelief, a dark resolve rises inside him to destroy any vampire who threatens them. Amanatsu calls for Hoshino again, waiting for him to follow, while Momoi groans, holding his head, knowing the night will haunt his dreams. Hina enters her room, feeling overwhelmed. She clutches her Mao toy tightly and releases her anger at Victor for changing everything. Victor stands with steady pride, explaining that he quickly arranged her room to be proper for her. Hina scans the space in worry and spots her Mao poster. She grabs it with relief, holding it close. Victor informs her that anything not matching the decor has been stored in the attic. Hina's frustration rises once again. Victor turns toward her with curious surprise, asking who Amanatsu is. Hina tenses and nervously admits he is just a friend next door. Victor grows confused, as he thought she had no friends. His concern deepens as he wonders if she's drunk Amanatsu's blood. Hina fiercely denies this, and Victor relaxes. She insists she can take care of herself, but he steps closer with firm intent, startling her. He apologizes softly and promises that she will live the proper life she deserves starting tomorrow. He vows to find humans worthy of her friendship and to handle everything for her. The scene shifts to a coffee shop 20 hours later. A waiter calls out to Amanatsu, inviting him to eat after his shift. Amanatsu rejects the offer, irritated because he wants to watch the K1 match at home. As he steps outside, he mutters excitedly to himself that tonight is the match of the century. But then, a waitress rushes in, announcing that all train services have stopped due to an accident. Amanatsu freezes in frustration. His eyes catch Hina standing on an electrical tower, and shock strikes him. He demands to know why she's up there. Hina turns in surprise when she hears him. Inside the cafe, a group of people teasingly introduces themselves as friend candidates and offers their blood with playful pride. Hina feels overwhelmed by their attention and suddenly leaps from the tower, landing safely. She runs away, crying that she can never return. Amanatsu chases after her, his concern growing. He urges her to send Victor away. Hina trembles and sobs that she cannot. Amanatsu sighs, rubbing her head gently, and softens his tone. He tells her to wait 15 minutes for his shift to end so he can take her home. He offers her a place to stay for the night. Hina bursts into tears again, but joy fills her face as she hears his offer. Amanatsu watches her run off, blinking in confusion. He rubs his forehead, feeling lightheaded. Meanwhile, Hina clutches her chest as her heart races. She rushes into a drugstore, trembling as she looks at a sleepover set and makeup remover wipes. She can't understand her emotions. Amanatsu's voice echoes in her mind. "You can stay at my place tonight." Her face warms, and she imagines herself wearing his pajamas and sleeping in his bed. She whispers a quiet thanks to Mao in her thoughts, imagining his warm scent surrounding her, as if he's holding her close. She blushes deeply, assuming this must be love. The cashier gives her the price, and she grabs the set with shaking hands. Meanwhile, Amanatsu walks home through the quiet streets, grumbling that he still made it home in time for the match. A harsh voice suddenly calls him punk, and Amanatsu turns to face Victor. Victor demands to know Hina's location with urgent emotion. Annoyance rises in Amanatsu as he repeats that he doesn't know. Victor insists that Amanatsu must have taken her. Amanatsu snaps back, claiming he barely understands her. Victor paces in frustration, his thoughts tangled in confusion as he speaks. He calls Hina a pure, white rose, untouched by sin. Guilt fills him as he recalls his shameful, blood-drinking habits, admitting that they have grown apart. Amanatsu ignores Victor's words and focuses on the TV, where his fighter stands in the red corner. Victor continues speaking with desperation. Amanatsu finally snaps, reminding him that Hina only drinks blood bags. Victor freezes, shocked, and calls Hina an angel. Amanatsu rolls his eyes, muttering that she's just an annoying anime otaku who became a vampire by accident. Victor reacts as if the words pierce him. Amanatsu goes on, saying that Victor sees only what he wants, which is why Hina resents him. Victor lowers his head. Amanatsu encourages him to see Hina as a normal person, not a symbol of perfection. Victor sighs and asks if his name is truly Amanatsu. He nods. Victor steps closer, murmuring that Amanatsu smells good. Fear locks Amanatsu in place, and he admits he can't move. Victor confesses that he skipped meals while being beside Hina-sama, warning Amanatsu not to expose his neck to a starving vampire. At that moment, Hina appears, calling out that she's there. Victor turns with overwhelming relief. Hina panics at the sight of him and steps back. He kneels and tries to reason with her, but she orders him to leave. Victor vows to obey her command and decides to come another time. Hina counters with sharp resolve, declaring she will force him away again if he tries. Amanatsu groans with exhaustion, begging both of them to go home. Amanatsu wakes up. He shouts in surprise to see Victor, who remains in front of the TV. Though his eyes stay on the screen, his thoughts are elsewhere, trapped in frustration over Mao, the one whom Hina-sama likes. The weight of failure presses down on him. He silently curses his weakness and questions how someone like him was ever trusted with her safety. Amanatsu studies Victor with disbelief, irritation growing as he wonders why Victor is still in Japan instead of returning home. Victor recalls the international call from Hina's father, who firmly instructed him to stay. Amanatsu loses patience and tells him to leave, especially since he is occupying the house without permission. Burdened by guilt, Victor refuses to sleep in Hina's room. Instead, he claims a corner of Amanatsu's house as his new space, which only frustrates Amanatsu further. When Hina appears and questions his presence, Victor clings to her father's permission as justification. Amanatsu's voice rises as Victor settles too comfortably into the warmth of the house. Hina reminds Victor not to trouble Amanatsu. Victor offers to camp outside, but she objects immediately, deciding she will stay in Amanatsu's home while Victor stays in hers. Amanatsu rejects the idea outright and demands that Victor pay half the rent if he intends to remain. He then orders Victor to buy ice cream from the convenience store as a test of basic social skills. Meanwhile, Hoshino arrives at Amanatsu's apartment to check on Hina. Before she can gather himself, Victor brushes past him and heads inside. Alarmed, Hoshino rushes in after him, only to find Amanatsu scolding Victor for bringing back ice instead of ice cream. Hina welcomes Hoshino warmly and invites him to sit for an otaku discussion. Hoshino notices Victor and looks confused, and Hina calmly explains that he is her fellow countryman who ended up freeloading at Amanatsu's house. He confirms, with clear annoyance, that Victor also works as Hina's bodyguard. Hoshino explains he came to check on Hina and to talk about the rare Vampire Cross crane game merchandise Hina wants. She immediately becomes determined to obtain it, and they head out. Seeing her excited, Victor takes the lead and even demands the clerk hand it over, but the clerk refuses since it must be won. The group gathers around the crane machine. Hina struggles and begins to worry she will fail. Victor vows to succeed but fails repeatedly, until Amanatsu steps in and wins the toy easily with a precise hook. Hina brightens when she spots a large Mao poster from the 6th season. Victor pulls out a knife to cut out her favorite part, but Amanatsu stops him and suggests taking a photo instead. She thanks him and saves the image. Victor watches her smile, and frustration tightens in his chest. No matter what he does, he cannot bring out that same expression. Thinking practically, Amanatsu suggests buying a small fridge so Victor can store his blood bags separately. He also insists that Victor pay half the utility bills. Victor agrees reluctantly. Watching this, Hina feels a quiet warmth. Amanatsu treats even a demon with care, and she finds herself admiring him. To her, life itself holds value, no matter who it belongs to. Hoshino notices Victor growing pale and becomes concerned. Without warning, Victor collapses into Amanatsu's lap, ashamed of showing weakness in front of Hina. Acting quickly, Amanatsu tells Hina and Hoshino to go to a cafe while he handles the situation. Our lad tries to comfort Victor, but he refuses, insisting that stored blood tastes unpleasant. He admits vampires do not die from lack of blood, but the weakness becomes unbearable. Realizing what he needs, Amanatsu offers him a small amount of his own blood. Later that night, under the quiet moon, Hina and Hoshino sit together on the stairs. Hoshino reflects on Amanatsu's kindness, noting that Victor is fortunate to receive such care. Hoshino notes that Amanatsu always protects the weak and never turns away from someone in trouble. He compares himself to Victor and feels a flicker of frustration. He is weaker than him and cannot reveal her identity as a vampire. Even so, Victor openly lives in Amanatsu's home and receives the warmth he longs for. A quiet sense of unfairness settles in her chest. He finds himself wishing he could be treated like a princess. Hoshino reaches her emotional limit and suddenly decides to return to confess his feelings to Amanatsu. Meanwhile, Hina thinks of Mao and imagines him acting the same way Amanatsu does when caring for a weakened vampire. The thought feels strangely endearing. As his chest tightens, he realizes the feeling is not just admiration. Hearing the word love pushes Hoshino into motion. He rushes off without her bag, insisting she does not need it. Meanwhile, Victor resists Amanatsu's support, convinced that his kindness is a way to win Hina's favor and force him out. Amanatsu ignores the accusation and hoists Victor onto his shoulder, grumbling as he carries him home. When Hoshino returns and tries to confess, Victor interrupts him. Amanatsu gently reminds him that he is supposed to be at the cafe. Hoshino lowers his head and stops mid-sentence. Hina arrives and checks on Victor's condition. Amanatsu explains that he is simply hungry and has eaten nothing. Hoshino grows concerned, but Amanatsu reassures her that Victor has not harmed him. As they prepare to return home to give Victor a blood bag, he suddenly wavers. Hina steps forward to steady him, and when he leans closer, she allows him to take her blood. Amanatsu watches in silence. A sharp ache rises in his chest. He pauses, startled by the unfamiliar feeling, and quietly wonders if this is what it means to fall in love. The outdoor camping club prepares for the upcoming school festival, with only 1 week left. The group decides to repeat last year's Angel Cafe, but all the girl members have already transferred to the offshoot glamping club. Only 7 male members remain, and they brace themselves for the workload. The leader adjusts the plan, guiding everyone toward a majestic, androgynous angel theme instead of the usual cute Cupid style. Amanatsu watches the preparations and recalls Hoshino's earlier thoughts about vampires. A quiet discomfort settles in his chest. He reminds himself that he and Hoshino are human, while Hina belongs to a world far beyond theirs. He convinces himself that a boundary must exist between humans and monsters. Hoshino overhears this and feels a sharp sting, wishing Amanatsu did not think that way. The club continues working, adjusting wings, spraying glitter, refining details. As the conversation lingers, Hoshino wonders aloud how Amanatsu would react if he himself were a vampire. The question leaves Amanatsu confused, but before he can answer, a sudden splash of blood hits the wings and splatters onto Hoshino, breaking the moment abruptly. The scene shifts to Victor. He enjoys the calm of the evening and feels rested for the first time in a while. Preparing to greet Hina, he changes into some of Amanatsu's clothes, since his own have been borrowed. Morning arrives and Hina greets the day with excitement, especially with the 6th season approaching. Amanatsu enters the room with stiff, uneasy movements, while Hina watches him expectantly. Without warning, he slams the door behind him, his expression tense and troubled. Hina immediately senses something is wrong and grows uneasy. Amanatsu drifts through the room in a distracted haze until the large coffin catches his eye. The sight startles him, deepening his anxiety. He turns away, bracing both hands against the desk as his breathing becomes uneven. Hina studies him closely, concern growing. As she follows his movements, the large display case slowly opens, revealing a full shrine dedicated to Mao. Posters, badges, plushies, and shelves packed with merchandise. A life-size Mao cushion rests on the bed among scattered magazines. Amanatsu stares at the overwhelming collection, unable to process it, while Hina quietly waits for him to recover. He quickly scans the room and asks if she owns anything suspicious, like a skull candle or a cursed portrait. Hina assures him she does not. He apologizes for intruding, grabs his bag, and prepares to leave for school. Before stepping out, he reminds her to lock the door properly, pointing out how careless she can be. He shuts the door firmly and disappears down the hall. Hina opens the door again and calls for Victor, explaining how strange Amanatsu's behavior was. Victor stays hidden, embarrassed by his disheveled state. He reflects on Amanatsu's hurried exit and wonders what could have caused it. She grows quietly worried, suspecting something unpleasant may have happened at school. The scene shifts to the school building, where the outdoor camping club struggles to set up their festival exhibit. They continue with the Angel Cafe theme, despite having only 7 male members left. The leader examines Amanatsu's attempt at a dark angel costume, but grows concerned because it lacks any true sense of darkness. Amanatsu apologizes even though his original angel design had already been approved. The leader reassures him, praising the high quality of his work, though that same quality only makes the rest of the setup look cheap in comparison. Amanatsu bows deeply, feeling responsible. The group wonders if anyone can convincingly portray a fallen angel. They admit it is far more difficult than playing a simple angel and quietly wish they still had female members. At that moment, Hina enters, asking for Amanatsu. The group brightens immediately, convinced she could embody the fallen angel role perfectly. They assume she is a new recruit, but she gently corrects them. Amanatsu rushes over, startled by her presence. Hina explains she came because he seemed troubled. The leader confirms her concern and reveals that Amanatsu accidentally dyed all the wings black, turning the Angel Cafe into a fallen angel cafe. Since then, the club has been struggling under the weight of the change. Hina looks over the setup and instantly likes it. The theme suits her perfectly. Victor stands beside her in silence, captivated by her presence. As he watches the group consider letting her serve customers, uneasiness begins to grow within him. Hoshino joins them and admires Hina's appearance. Amanatsu observes her attempting basic waitress duties and immediately realizes she struggles with simple movements. The leader remains patient, confident she will improve with practice. Hina, encouraged, promises to do her best. Victor refuses to be outdone. Determined to prove his worth, he begins instructing Hina in detail: how to hold a cup, how to lower it without sound, where to place her fingers, and how to approach a table properly. His guidance becomes increasingly meticulous, and Hoshino comments on her presence. Back home, Amanatsu retreats to his laptop, drained and unmotivated. He mutters about how exhausting school festivals are and regrets not quitting like the others. Hina approaches him again, holding a fallen angel menu board she decorated herself. Amanatsu wonders how she managed it so quickly. She explains that she hopes everyone will enjoy it. He then asks where Victor has gone. Hina calmly explains that Victor is outside conducting formal etiquette lessons. Amanatsu grows irritated, frustrated that Victor treats the festival like a noble ceremony. He warns both of them not to stand out too much, reminding them they are still outsiders. Hina nods, listening carefully, and says how happy she feels to help. Privately, Amanatsu insists she is not helping at all and that he never asked for her involvement. Hina continues, expressing gratitude for how he always supports her. Amanatsu becomes flustered, insisting he mostly scolds her instead. But Hina is sincere. Since arriving in Japan, this is the first time she feels she is helping others instead of simply indulging in her own interests. Being useful brings her genuine happiness. Amanatsu listens in silence. His frustration begins to fade as he realizes how much she has lifted everyone's spirits. His mistake changed the entire plan and lowered morale. Yet Hina's presence brightens the room and motivates the group. Recognizing this, he quietly thanks her. Hina becomes cherished by the club and leaves with excitement for the next day. Amanatsu watches her go, a quiet realization settling in. The boundary he tries to draw between human and monster no longer holds. No matter how he defines it, the line continues to blur. The school festival begins with lively energy, and students crowd around the campus. Rumors spread about a super cute maid working at the Fallen Angel Cafe, and curious visitors gather to see for themselves. Inside the cafe, Hina serves customers in her Fallen Angel maid outfit, offering poison coffee and terrifying hot dogs as part of the theme. The customers enjoy the playful menu, and one senior quietly acknowledges her effort before letting her take a short break. Hina carries the warmth of the previous night in her chest, remembering how Amanatsu thanked her. The memory fills her with happiness and motivates her to be even more useful. She remembers how he once protected her and saved her life, and that gratitude strengthens her resolve. A customer approaches, requests a photo of her, and receives a souvenir card from her, leaving him thrilled. Victor monitors her from a distance, his nerves tightening. He worries that if other vampires spot Hina wearing such clothing, her reputation in their world could collapse. Amanatsu urges him to relax, noticing how much Hina enjoys the festival, but Victor remains on edge. He imagines dangerous people showing up without warning. His fear becomes real when a masked man approaches the school gate and confronts Amanatsu, hunting for a rumored idol. Amanatsu attempts to redirect him, but the masked man grabs him by the collar, drawn in by Amanatsu's scent. Inside the cafe, Hoshino continues welcoming customers when the masked man returns, repeating the phrase, "I'm back," over and over. His confused behavior unsettles her. He tries to understand the cafe's concept and rambles about his past experiences at other maid cafes, especially about a legendary maid he once adored, Muton. He treats her like a cherished memory from a golden era. Hina arrives to take his order, and he immediately demands multiple solo photos, overwhelmed by her cuteness. She delivers his food, and he reacts with even greater excitement. He pulls out a thick photo album dedicated entirely to Miyutan, filled with pictures and handwritten messages. Hina studies the album with interest, recognizing the devotion behind it. She shares how having someone important becomes a source of dreams and hope. She then points to her own favorite, the person who kept her in this world and became precious to her. The masked man grows deeply moved, impressed that she cherishes someone she cannot physically reach. Her honesty strikes him as pure. When he learns her name, he abruptly replaces Mutan with Hina as his new favorite. He takes a photo of her on the spot, praises her sweetness and kindness, and announces that an entire new album will be devoted to her from now on. Hina freezes in shock. She cannot accept how easily he discards Mutan after years of devotion. She feels sympathy for the abandoned maid and expresses her disapproval. The man does not appreciate the resistance and treats it as an unusual behavior for a maid. When Hoshino tries to guide Hina away, the man reacts violently and knocks Hoshino aside. Victor rushes in with urgency. The situation he feared has finally arrived. Amanatsu insists that Victor handle this because a person like the masked man should not be wandering freely on school grounds. Victor feels frustrated by the responsibility, but before he can act, another masked man appears and recognizes him as a vampire. Although their hair colors differ, the stranger senses it immediately. Victor straightens his posture and responds with noble composure, reminding the men of the vampire hierarchy. Lower-ranked vampires must obey those above them. The masked vampire notes Victor's ignorance and assumes that life in thee must be peaceful here. Meanwhile, the guy in cafe orders Hoshino to go aside without effort. Hina watches with tension. The masked man studies her again and becomes fascinated by her defiance. Her refusal sparks a new fixation inside him. He demands that she take responsibility for this. Hina is shocked that he's of Amir as well. Hoshino is filled with worry as he didn't follow her order. The masked man grows increasingly unstable. Her refusal excites him, and he places an unwanted kiss on her head. He praises her as a maid who surpasses his expectations and promises to return after making a reservation. Once he leaves, he walks home in high spirits, calling her cute and admirable, and now even more appealing because she is a vampire. As he continues down the street, someone calls out to him by the name Fujimiya. Fujimiya turns around as his masked subordinates rush toward him in panic. One kneels, trembling, and admits they failed their duty. Another breaks into tears and apologizes repeatedly. Their leader studies them with a calm gaze and wonders what happened. The masked subordinate confesses that they were defeated by a vampire named Victor and believes his own greed caused the failure. They confess their original mission, to capture Fujimiya's former favorite maid on camera, but it collapsed completely. Fujimiya listens in silence and then smiles, not bothered at all. He no longer cares about his old favorite because he has already chosen a new one. Hina reflects on the incident and realizes her command failed on the vampire. She insists it was no mistake because she ordered him not to touch her, yet he still leaned in and kissed onto her forehead. Amanatsu freezes at the word kissed and his mind spirals as he wonders where Victor disappeared during that entire moment. Hina thinks of her father and briefly considers the possibility that this stranger might be connected to him. She immediately pushes the thought away because a vampire with the same rank as her father could never be some hidden child. Her father stays devoted to her mother, and as a patent attorney prepares to visit him, he leaves quickly after encouraging her to inform Victor about everything. Hina agrees and promises to visit again, although uncertainty still lingers in her chest. Meanwhile, Fujimiya walks away from the school festival and mutters that he never wishes to encounter Victor again. To him, Victor's behavior feels like a disgrace to the entire otaku community. Amanatsu eventually finds Hina and urges her to return because everyone has been searching for her. The outdoor camping club gathers and officially closes the Fallen Angel Cafe. The festival ends, and the group celebrates the 3 days of hard work. Hina feels overjoyed as she claps with the others. The leader expresses genuine gratitude and acknowledges how much she helped the club. He invites her to their celebration party and hands her the decorative flowers they used. Hina hugs the bouquet with a beaming smile. Victor watches her with dramatic admiration, comparing her radiance to a descending saint among noisy monkeys. Another member glances at Victor and mutters an apology because they have no flowers left for him. Hoshino feels relieved that Hina has cheered up after such a rough day. She mentions that a strange customer forced a forehead kiss on Hina and behaved like a complete pervert. The word pervert hits Amanatsu and Victor at the same time, freezing both of them in shock. Later, Hina curls up on the sofa and falls asleep as if she owns the place. Amanatsu wakes her gently and reminds her that she was taken advantage of earlier. Victor grows tense as he tries to understand why her command failed. He insists that such disobedience should be impossible. Amanatsu grows frustrated and admits he cannot understand the complicated vampire hierarchy. Victor explains that rank depends entirely on blood purity. If the progenitor's blood stands at 100%, each generation loses about 5%. Vampires created through contracts inherit only half of their parents' purity. He further explains that modern vampires often fall below 1% because most originate from blood pacts. Hina, as the biological child of his master, carries a purity of 95%. Only her father compares to her level. If the man from the cafe truly matches her purity, or surpasses it, then Victor fears he cannot protect her properly. Victor imagines how a sheltered girl like Hina must feel facing someone with equal power and grows sad, convinced that she must feel both lonely and unsafe without her father. The next day, Hina enters the clubroom with cheerful energy. She greets Amanatsu and Hoshino and arrives ready to help with cleanup. Amanatsu wonders if she came alone and asks about Victor. She explains that she came by herself because Victor had other tasks. She proudly shows her new Maokun badge, which finally arrived. Amanatsu's expression tightens immediately. He grows tense, grabs her hand gently, and leads her outside while insisting on taking her home. Hina stumbles after him and wonders if she truly should skip helping with cleanup. As they walk, Amanatsu blurts out that she remains the most carefree, thick-skinned, stubborn otaku he knows. Hina flinches and admits the description feels harsh, but she still reminds him that he can depend on others whenever he feels lonely. Amanatsu softens for a moment. Hina wonders if he is acting kind toward her. Her head suddenly turns fuzzy and her steps wobble. Amanatsu checks her temperature but cannot judge what normal feels like for a vampire. He assumes she's tired and encourages her to lie down when she gets home. Hina blushes because he treats her gently, almost like a fainting damsel. He decides to buy medicine and leaves for a moment. Victor quickly switches to his report, explaining that he spent the night investigating the arrival records of pure-blooded vampires from Europe in the last 50 years. He concludes that the only one who came to Japan is Hina herself. Hina becomes embarrassed and urges him not to call her powerful, especially when Amanatsu might overhear. Victor continues anyway and notes that the stranger from the cafe might carry purity above 95%, reaching the level of a monster. Hina panics and covers Victor's mouth, terrified that Amanatsu might discover her purity level. She wonders if cute girls should only be around 3% and jokingly questions whether her father is even related to her by blood. Victor stares at her in disbelief. Amanatsu returns and calls to Victor, explaining that Hina might have caught a cold. He wonders whether human medicine even works on vampires. Victor rejects the idea immediately, insisting she would never catch a cold. Meanwhile, Hina sits in front of the TV and drifts into thoughts of Mao. She recalls her fear of becoming a vampire and remembers Mao's promise to protect her. When Amanatsu steps close and assures her that she does not need to be afraid, a soft ache stirs in her chest. She wishes she could receive such protection. A message arrives from Hoshino, who wonders if Hina plans to attend the celebration party on Friday. Amanatsu overhears and questions why she would attend a party where she cannot drink or eat. Hina explains that she wants to celebrate because she helped the club. She brings her own drinks, but Amanatsu rejects the idea because it caused problems at the host club before. She insists she can stay quietly with Hoshino. Amanatsu sighs because Hoshino always adjusts himself for her. Before Hina can respond, masked vampires appear. They call for her politely and announce that Fujimiya-sama wants to meet her. Hina stiffens and wonders who they are. Amanatsu recognizes them immediately as the same group from the festival and links them to the perverted man. The masked vampires confirm the connection and mention Fujimiya's name. They contact Fujimiya through the phone. Fujimiya's voice emerges, and he mentions how much he enjoyed himself the other day. He explains that he returned to the cafe yesterday, wanting her to serve him again, only to find it closed. Amanatsu grows irritated as Fujimiya continues. Fujimiya recalls seeing Hina walk, holding another man's hand, and considers that unforgivable for a master. He demands that she explain herself, and orders her to follow the masked men immediately. Amanatsu stiffens, and Hina trembles as she clings to him, whispering for protection. She admits she feels scared. Fujimiya urges her again, but Hina refuses. He pushes harder, and she cries for Amanatsu. Amanatsu steadies her and reassures her that she has nothing to fear. He promises to protect her, and Hina brightens with relief. Fujimiya wonders why his commands fail. One masked vampire bluntly explains that Hina carries 95% pure blood and stands as a monster compared to Fujimiya. Fujimiya falls silent in shock. Hina hides behind Amanatsu and begs for protection. He steps forward and warns the masked men to leave, insisting they cannot face Hina. She tugs his arm and scolds him for making her sound like the one kidnapping them. She points out that they look threatening, but in reality, they carry purity below 1%. She insists Amanatsu is far stronger. Her frustration bursts out, and she mutters that she hates him in that moment. One masked vampire finally signals retreat. He warns Hina that Fujimiya never gives up easily and urges her to be careful. Amanatsu demands to know why they follow such a man. He wonders if Fujimiya is their father. The masked vampire rejects the idea immediately. He explains that Fujimiya only recently became a vampire and admits he feels tired of the entire situation. He waves lazily and leaves with the others. Morning arrives at the inn as the alarm rings through the quiet building. Amanatsu wakes, exhausted, shuts it off, and immediately feels how drained his body still is. Victor lies collapsed on the floor beside him, completely still. Amanatsu notices the untouched blood bags and grows uneasy. It is clear Victor has not eaten. After a moment, Victor forces himself to drink from one, yet his condition does not improve, deepening Amanatsu's concern. Elsewhere, Hoshino reacts with shock when he learns they somehow receive a pair of onsen trip tickets. A friend offers them with a bitter smile, admitting he once planned to use them with a girlfriend but never had the chance. Amanatsu quietly agrees that an overnight trip sounds nice, while Hoshino panics internally at the idea of going alone with him. His excitement quickly takes over, and he drags Amanatsu along to secure the trip. Later, at karaoke, he announces that the two of them will travel together to Rokumesu in Hakone for an overnight stay. Hina overhears this and immediately brightens. She asks to join, but Hoshino gently explains that there are only 2 tickets, just enough for him and Amanatsu. Blushing, he steels himself, deciding he will confess his feelings during the trip. Hina encourages him warmly, insisting Amanatsu will not care that he is a vampire. She reminds him that Amanatsu already accepts both her and Victor, urging Hoshino to relax and sing with her. Amanatsu arrives at the inn and admires the peaceful room and the beautiful garden outside. Hoshino follows, nerves trembling as the reality settles in. He will be alone with Amanatsu. Without warning, Amanatsu reveals that he already knows. Shock overwhelms Hoshino. His thoughts spiral into dramatic, romantic scenarios before he flees in embarrassment toward the bath. In the changing room, Hoshino freezes again when Amanatsu casually remarks that he looks pale, almost feminine. Amanatsu admits he feels something unusual around him, then leaves. Hoshino collapses in confusion. Desperate, he texts Hina, unsure how to confess now that everything feels too overwhelming. Nearby, Hina relaxes, quietly cheering him on and hoping things go well. Meanwhile, she secretly follows them to the inn, her heart racing as she imagines a perfect confession scene from her favorite anime. Victor calls her just then. She answers and casually mentions she is staying at Rokumesu in Hakone, describing her room filled with gold accents and delicate goldfish motifs. Victor grows confused, wondering why she is there at all. Hina trembles with excitement. The setting reminds her of the moment when Prince Rukia prepares to confess to Princess Teresa. She promises herself she will stay out of the way and not ruin Hoshino's moment. Moving quietly through the inn, she soon spots Amanatsu heading alone toward the main bath and wonders how Hoshino is doing. As she steps forward, Fujiyama suddenly appears in front of her. He beams with excitement, declaring that he has finally found her again. Hina freezes, immediately sensing danger. Fuji admits he traveled all this way just to see her, even convincing a friend to drive him there. Unease settles in Hina's chest. She knows his presence will only bring trouble. At the same time, Hoshino watches from a distance, panic rising. He wants to remove Fuji before things escalate. Looking at himself, he becomes painfully aware of what he believes is his lack of charm, convincing himself Amanatsu could never see him that way. Amanatsu returns from the bath and Hoshino greets him nervously. Amanatsu notices a table filled with food and asks who ordered it. Hoshino insists it is all for him, claiming he cannot eat due to allergies. Amanatsu grows concerned, while Hoshino quietly sinks under the weight of his lie. Finally, Hoshino gathers his resolve. He decides this trip will be the moment he stops hiding. He will confess both his feelings and his identity as a vampire. As they sit together, Amanatsu wonders if Hoshino feels bored traveling with only him, worrying he forced the plan too suddenly. Hoshino quickly denies it, and Amanatsu relaxes. He admits he feels at ease around Hoshino because he believes him to be human. Lately, he feels trapped, constantly surrounded by vampires. Even his home no longer feels peaceful. He thought he would never escape that tension. The words hit hard. Hoshino's resolve falters. Confessing now feels impossible. He thinks of Hina, who visits Amanatsu often, despite having her own home. Even knowing the danger, Amanatsu still lets her in. A quiet jealousy stirs within Hoshino. He brought Amanatsu here to grow closer, yet the distance between them only feels larger. Even so, Hoshino forces himself forward. After they finish eating, he leads Amanatsu toward the garden, determined to say what he must. Meanwhile, Hina remains trapped with Fujimiya. Fuji overwhelms her with praise and restless excitement. She tries to escape, but he blocks her path and demands an explanation for the 95% purity. Hina refuses. Confused, Fuji grabs her and suddenly confesses. He claims he fell for her at first sight. He admits his past relationships were limited to maid and master roles, but now he wants something real. His obsession spirals further, as he even begins imagining a future with her. Outside, the cold air brushes against Amanatsu, but Hoshino insists he does not feel it. Nervous warmth spreads through him instead. Gathering his courage, he admits he is not normal, that he is different, and asks through unsteady breaths whether Amanatsu could accept someone like him. Amanatsu responds gently, offering warmth, but only as a friend. At that same moment, Hina breaks free and runs through the hallway, calling for help. Amanatsu and Hoshino hear her voice, and Hoshino immediately calls out to her. Hina rushes past them, pleading for safety, yet also urging Hoshino to continue his moment because she believes he is finally confessing. Fujimiya corners her again and offers a strange bargain. He will act like her favorite anime character if she agrees to become his maid. Hina refuses without hesitation. Suddenly, Victor appears. He has secretly reserved a room to remain close as her guardian. He checks her condition and steps in front of her, blocking Fujimiya. However, his composure breaks when he realizes Hina is surrounded by others, especially vampires. His insecurity surges. His subordinates arrive soon after, filling the space. Hoshino feels overwhelmed at the sight. Nearly every vampire from before has gathered here, everyone except Amanatsu. In contrast, Amanatsu remains the only person who makes him feel safe. Realizing this, Hoshino makes a quiet decision. For Amanatsu's sake, he will bury his feelings and remain only a friend. Fujimiya raises his hand and everyone falls silent. He says he has the power to control lower-ranking vampires, but it means nothing if Hina refuses to listen to him. His voice grows desperate as he wonders how he can ever make her accept him. That night in Hakone feels tense and heavy. Emotions clash all around them. Obsession, jealousy, fear, and longing, mixing together with no clear end.
Here I am.